Happy New Year, Steers! It's your man CJ back with our second annual disappointing albums list. Sounds bad when you say it like that. This list is just expectations meeting execution. How much did you have writing on the project and what did you deliver in turn? Yes, we're labeling them disappointed because of the standards these artists have set for themselves, but don't get that confused with trash. Well, unless stated otherwise. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a like if you're rocking with the content. Let's get into it. Number 10, Busta Rhymes, Blockbusta. There's no beating around the bush. This wasn't just a bad album to come from a living legend, it was bad by any standard. When running down the list of producers that had their hands in the pot and the numerous talents that have been making their own mark in the industry, we thought Busta was about to stand on business. Little did we know he was standing on thin ice with steel-toed Tim's on. Extinction Level Event 2 was much better than anticipated. Not only did its theme and rollout match our frantic mindset at the time around COVID, but he had songs sprinkled throughout that clearly showed there was still gas left in the tank. Somewhere in between that release and 2023, Busta jumped in the studio with Quavo and everything went downhill from there. And that's not to say Quavo was the problem, but Busta's fan base, by and large, isn't overlapping with artists like Coi Leray, Kodak Black, or Young Blue, which makes us question who was this album intended for? If making TikTok music was the end goal, a supporting cast placed around an artist other than Busta Rhymes would have been much more ideal. And if he was trying to feed fans of his that were checking for releases like Extinction Level Event, why are he and T-Pain the only artist on the album over 35 years old? Of course, every rule has its exceptions. We didn't expect that joint with Busta, T-Pain, and the Baby to bump the way it did. Nor did we think about how fire a combo Burna Boy and Pharrell could be in the studio together, but the 2 or 3 diamonds in the rough weren't even close to making the 19-song project a worthwhile listen. We can't be the only ones that were looking for appearances from the likes of Q-Tip, Method Man, or Rod Digger, so we don't know who encouraged these creative liberties, but by its dismal critical reception and lackluster commercial impact, hopefully this is the last time we see Busta Rhymes and Bia in the studio together. Number 9, City Girls, Raw. To make this list, an artist either failed to meet the expectations set for them from their previous work, or their execution clearly fell short of what they've demonstrated in the past. As far as having expectations for the album, honestly, we can't say we fell into that camp, but to go from their highest first week sales to barely scraping 10K, with this new era of women dominating airwaves, we're reminded just how short our collective attention span can be. Back in 2018, Caresha and Jatavia, better known as Young Miami and JT, burst onto the scene just as suddenly as a Glorilla or a Sexy Red, minus the promotional advantage of a trending TikTok song. They put out a mixtape that made waves, an album supported by hit singles Act Up and Twerk, and an appearance on the song of the summer, In My Feelings. We're not even gonna pretend the Miami-based duo was at the top of our radar coming into the year, but we have always maintained that JT can rap her ass off. Not to mention Caresha's marketability and business savvy. So when we saw Raw trending online for its commercial underperformance, we found it a little hard to believe. You could attribute it to a disinterested fan base. After all, a lot has happened in the 3 years since their last album. But stepping back even further, we think it validates claims made against their label QC. Rising to prominence off the success of acts like Migos, Lil Yachty, and Lil Baby, QC seemed to have a monopoly on southern hip-hop sound for the foreseeable future. That is until their plate got too heavy and artists began looking at management for answers. When Lil Baby started outpacing Migos, the Atlanta trio blamed the label for mismanagement and a lack of promotion. We chalked that up to disgruntled stars in the shifting soundscape. Then Lil Baby went through a similar issue with It's All On Me. Once the same issue made itself present with Raw, we knew the problems had to be coming from the top. Preceded by 6 singles, half of which we didn't even know had dropped, the duo's third album was dead in the water before it even got a chance. There were a couple of joints on here worth spinning. Static with Lil Durk and Fancy Ass Bitch with Juicy J both accomplished what they set out to do. But as a whole, this project's inclusion on this list speaks to the larger downfall of the label and its inability to sustain talent. Number 8, Jeezy. I might forgive, but I don't forget. If this album had come out 3 years ago, you wouldn't have heard any complaints from us. However, serving as the follow-up to his highly acclaimed tape with DJ Drama, I Might Forgive But I Don't Forget pulls the emergency brake on the momentum Jeezy accrued with Snowfall. Many artists with 15-plus year careers often allude to putting out music reminiscent of their glory days, but few ever scratch the surface of such bold claims. Jeezy managed to actually reverse time when he employed that bass-heavy, eerie trap sound he helped to popularize in the early 2000s. After a highly publicized separation from wife Jeannie Mae, the Snowman promised fans quality and clarity on his 2023 release. Not only were we left with more questions than answers after tapping in with the 86-minute long double disc, but we had to scratch our heads and wonder if our initial reaction to Snowfall was a bit overhyped. It wasn't, but our disappointment with his newest release was certainly warranted. Departing from Def Jam after 18 years on the label, we believe we'd be hearing a more mature Jeezy who could catch us up on his personal dealings while still flirting with the Pyrex and baking soda. What we got in return was probably the most bloated and watered down depiction of the two sides. Songs like No Complaining, Shine On Me, and Since Pac Died are above average Jeezy cuts, not bad for his 11th solo LP, but even with input from ATL Jacob, Justice League, and Ricky Polo, the production was missing the grit and grime that had us excited in the first place. It never helps having to sort through 30 songs to find a handful of decent rotational pieces either. As with many artists who set out for lofty and overly ambitious albums to deliver on, Jeezy has a solid album at the core of I Might Forgive's morbidly obese track list. Which begs the question, what made him think fans were looking for a 30-song project? He tried his best to channel Nasir Jones, dropping his first album without any features on the back end of his career. Jeezy, if you're watching this, bro, please lock back in the studio with drama. Grab 21, Babyface Ray, Moneybagg, and Kodak, and churn out that next season of Snowfall. Number 7, Trippie Redd, Mansion Music. Circling back to that point about these not being bad projects, Trippie's 5th studio album isn't on this list for quality purposes. Well, not entirely anyway. Between the expectations he garnered from Trip at Night and the monotonous approach to Mansion Music, we can't help but to feel Redd underperformed in a year when hip-hop needed his versatility the most. Look at the reception Yachty got on Let's Start Here. Venturing out of his comfort zone, Lil Bo put out an alternative rock/folk fusion album that's had him in Album of the Year discussion since dropping back in January. Not only is said alternative lane well within Trippie's comfort zone, at times it's been his bread and butter. With Sosa donning the executive producer label and features from Kodak, Future, Trav, and Durkio, among others, Trippie had all the ingredients for his biggest highlight yet. Instead, we fell for the pump fake. From the unimaginative album cover and his narrow scope of material to the limited studio presence and uninspired sound, the album feels more like a contractual obligation than a studio LP from one of the game's most innovative voices. With A Love Letter to You 5 dropping just over 6 months later, it feels like the album should have been the mixtape and vice versa. It's some joints that caught our ear for sure, Colors, Muscles, and Toilet Water, not to mention Keith touching down on Atlantis and Rock Out, but next to none of the limitless creativity that's given his music its psychedelic edge so far. Between the material he released on Mansion Music, A Love Letter to You 5, and St. Michael, Trippie could have easily delivered his most impactful and finely crafted project to date. Now don't forget to check out the songs we mentioned. Also add I'm Mad at Me featuring Tunchi and Pray For Us to your 2023 banger playlist. You can thank us later. Number 6, Rick Ross and Meek Mill, Too Good to Be True. We've seen a common talking point attached to this project, with many fans stating the album came 10 years too late. While we'll agree that the timing isn't opportune, we would have wanted this collab to materialize around 2018 rather than 2013. Ross and Meek Mill have a long-standing history of monster collabs with each other, but we knew something was off when they dropped lead single Shaq and Kobe. It wasn't a bad song, just extremely predictable and on brand for the two. Besides, when is the last time either of them were in championship contention? We'd say 2018. Even then, they'd have been looking more like 04 Shaq and Kobe. You know, the MMG camp spared no expense with a lavish and exorbitant sound provided by producers like ATL Jacob, Murder Beats, Southside, and Tay Keith. We also get solid contributions from Wale, Fab, The Dream, and Dame Dollar getting buckets on and off the court. We're just wondering, who asked for this though? With the label on life support at this point, Ross and Meek joining forces feels like MMG light instead of a dream team pairing like Her Loss or Watch the Throne. With songs like I'm a Boss, So Sophisticated, Believe It, and What's Free under their belts, we as fans already knew what the ceiling on an album like this was. We just didn't expect the end result to be so forgettable and lackluster. Dead Last, Fine Lines, Gold Medals, and In Love with the Money are all decent album cuts, but they sound and feel like attempts to recreate Lightning in a Bottle. Despite Meek bringing the cornrows back, Too Good to Be True just doesn't have the same passion and intensity behind it that blew up the MMG label to begin with. Number 5, Nas, Magic Magic 2. After the insane run Nas and Hit have been on since 2020, we never thought he would end up making one of these lists. With Magic 2 being their 5th album in just 3 years, questions eventually started swirling around the sustainability of such prolific output. Directly preceding this was the first Magic tape, followed by King's Disease 3, our picks for the best projects to come out of the series. So when Nas did his usual last-minute announcement of the album dropping, we were all in. It didn't take long before we realized this is the worst entry in the collection by far. Tapping 50 Cent and 21 Savage for the only features on the project, we could hear 50 hadn't been in the studio since recording the theme song for Power. And the song with 21 felt so out of place for the project. When it dropped, we thought it was just them seizing a moment of controversy. Unlike their other entries, however, Magic 2 fails to make any impact through standout features, impeccable lyrical performances, or ear-grabbing sample flips. Irvin Magic Johnson, Bokeem Woodbine, and Abracadabra keep the tape from being a complete wash, but as suddenly as he dropped Magic 2, he and Hit released Magic 3 almost like an apology for whiffing during crunch time. On their third installment, we got replay value, vivid storytelling, and cohesion that we didn't realize we were taking for granted until we heard the second Magic album. After releasing 6 albums in 3 years, we're sure we haven't heard the last of the Nas and Hit Boy duo. We just hope that if and when they do decide to collaborate and release more music, that they prioritize quality over quantity. Number 4, Young Thug, Business is Business. Okay, we know there are extenuating circumstances going on, but as the saying goes, if you're on the field, you're 100%. Young, truly humbled under God, born Jeffrey Williams, has blazed the trap scene coming out of Atlanta for over a decade now. He didn't do it by being conventional though. He's had a flurry of highly successful mixtapes, notable features, and some of the most dynamic albums we've heard in recent memory. If even 50% of that energy was present on this record, we'd be discussing somebody else. We understand a lot of his material he recorded before the Rico hit. Features from Drake, 21, Uzi, Travis Scott, and Future all sound good on paper until you actually tap in with the project and get the sense that they haven't touched these verses up in a minute either. With heavy input from Weezy and Metro Boomin, including executive production from the latter, beat quality and star power should have been the last thing fans had to worry about. But even the title of the album would lead audiences to believe that neither Thug's heart nor soul were in the project. After all, business is business. When re-examining Jeffrey's discography, we can see a wide range of qualities and traits that he embodies both as an artist and seemingly as a person. Being forgettable, however, was never in our parlay. Oh, You Went with Drizzy was definitely a silver lining on an overcast day, but across the board, these collabs just not hitting the same. But if we could have made one major alteration to the album, it would have been the inclusion of Jeffrey's signature storytelling layered throughout. Classics like Daddy's Birthday and Die Slow put Thug's introspective mastery of storytelling and songwriting on full display. We've come to have these expectations of him not as a rapper but as an artist, and not only were these endearing album cuts missing, but his multifaceted, almost ambidextrous flows on songs like Little Baby and Mannequin Challenge are nowhere to be found throughout the project's 15-song track list, which we feel played a bigger factor than any other in preventing Thug from securing his 3rd straight #1 release. Number 3, Drake, For All the Dogs. Between the vulnerable and intimate songs crafted with Take Care in mind, or the gritty and energetic trap cuts that channeled If You're Reading This, Drake was so focused on giving fans the old him that he couldn't decide which version we wanted. With features from Cole, Yachty, Yeet, and Tizo Touchdown, Drake has never occupied such little real estate on his own album before. Cole has been ripping everything, so he gets a pass on that one. And honestly, getting not one but 2 collabs between them has certainly served as a highlight for 2023. But Another Late Night is basically a Yachty type beat on YouTube that Boat did his thing on, but we really didn't need Drake on there to begin with. IDGAF was our first introduction to Yeet, and we could hear off the rip that Drake was catering more to his sound than anything the OVO label head had put out before. So when Joe Budden told Drake his subject matter wasn't keeping up with his audience, and Drake threw all those shots on Instagram, we never would have imagined the same advice being implemented on the Scary Hours edition. Despite being in the studio with Alchemist and Conductor Williams, and the critical brownie points he redeemed on the deluxe edition, he still crammed records like Gently, Trippie, Slime You Out, and Members Only onto an album that was already about 5 songs over budget. CLB had its own flaws, but there are certain album cuts that have grown on us in the 2+ years since competing with Donda. We can all look back on Honestly Nevermind and admit Drake may have saw the curve leaning toward dance music before everyone else. Even her loss with 21 turned out to be a home run both critically and commercially. But while it might be too early to see the aftermath of For All the Dogs and its impact on the industry, even now being months removed from the release, it's clear Drake lost some steam on this record. Again, the point of these lists is not to say that all these artists failed, just that based on their own standards, we expected more out of them. We like this album a little more each day, but between the Alchemist production, cold features, sequencing, and petty clickbait bars, we can't deny that Drake left a lot of money on the table. Still gonna be checking for that next release though. Number 2. Lil Uzi Vert, The Pink Tape. Unless you live under a rock, we're sure you heard the chatter throughout 2023 about hip-hop's commercial landslide. We're talking biggest genre in the world to no number ones halfway through the year kind of slump. After selling just shy of 300K in their first week with Eternal Take, we knew The Pink Tape would succeed in ending rap's dry spell. Vert sold just shy of 170K, securing their 3rd straight chart topper. One spin of the album's 26-song track list made 2 things abundantly clear. 1, Uzi went from being one of the most influential to one of the most influenced artists in his lane, and 2, this isn't 2016's Uzi by any metric. Instead of a cohesive album filled with bangers and melodic gems, Uzi delivers a hit or miss that couldn't have come at a worse time in their career. Patience and Spin Again do give us vintage Vert vibes, but what did Cole say on the offseason?
Look how everybody clapping when your 30-song album do a measly 100,000.
But even after sifting through nearly 700 songs, Drama and Uzi weren't selective enough with their cuts. Blatantly biting Cardi's vamp style on Suicide Doors and Trippie's rage vibes on Crush 'Em, we just don't understand what changed between 2020 and 2023. Not to mention Uzi getting the short end of the stick with Endless Fashion, their collab with Nicki. It would be a bit of a stretch to call it a bad song, but it's damn sure not everybody. We wanted to take a minute to appreciate Uzi's willingness to try any and everything on this album though. With sounds ranging from Werewolf and Patience to Rehab and The End, there truly is something on here for everybody. Just not enough to justify releasing their longest album to date. Supposedly, Love Is Rage 3 is going to be Vert's 4th and final album. Take that with a grain of salt. Despite the disappointing rollout of what was supposed to be one of the biggest albums of the year, we're still holding out hope that they can at least redeem themselves from Pink Tape. Maybe even give us another classic before it's all said and done. Number 1, Andre 3000, New Blue Sun.
You know why I'm here. You know why I'm here.
Hey, let's be real. We've been holding our breath for this 3 Stacks album for what feels like forever at this point. The same week we find out we're getting the album, he tells us it's an instrumental record. Y'all knew who was taking this spot. While it might be one of the dopest aromatherapy albums in the game, the lack of vocals and departure from the genre as a whole made our listening experience very bittersweet. Yes, we want him to pursue music his heart is in, and we understand as fans that our direction for the artist isn't going to supersede their own vision. But come on, Dre, 90 minutes and you couldn't squeak out a verse or 2? It would be one thing if he were dropping out of the blue, 5+ years removed from hip hop and its inner workings. But we just heard a contender for Feature of the Year on that Killer Mike album. The same Killer Mike that hinted at a rap album on his press run for Michael. We know it wasn't his place to clue us in to begin with, hence him walking his statement back. But we knew there was some merit to the claim. Instead of cushioning the blow and letting fans know, hey, I do have something on the way, but it's not what y'all have been asking for, he maintained radio silence until the last possible moment. Again, this calls into question, what is the line between expectation and entitlement? On paper, an artist should be able to follow their creative instincts to their last breath, especially half of the greatest hip-hop duo of all time. But it's that same contribution that leaves us feeling like we left the listening party empty-handed. Man, coming out of Atlanta, it can't be overstated how impactful 3000 has been to us and rap as a whole. We're glad 3 Stacks is happy, healthy, and in a place where he can continue to do what he loves. That doesn't change the fact that a small part of our hip-hop conscience died when we heard all 8 of them long-ass songs without a lick of 3 Stack vocals. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to check out his affectionate ode to his parents, Me and My. Also, check out our Outkast albums ranked list here. And that'll do it for us. Another year in the books. Let us know how you felt about 2023's output. Did you love it or would you scrap it? Let us know in the comments right after you subscribe and hit that like button. CJ signing out for The Culture. Peace.